We're back with Season 8, Episode 19, On the Road to Friendship. This is the idea where we have a road trip between the two lovers, friends, Trixie and Starlight. Alright, so, first of all, Starlight's hamming it up for the big show at the beginning is actually quite hilarious, and I'm totally with it. It's interesting because the two make a really good duo, which we've pointed out before. Starlight and Trixie have been a great duo every single time they've been on camera, so that's not really surprising. It's just good to see that they're still doing stuff. I also love Flurry Heart just kind of hanging out on Cadence's head. In fact, actually, I imagine it's kind of... Anyway, so... hang on. There we go. I love the ladybug thing, and it keeps showing up. Flurry, no! Could you, Flurry? Oh, could you? I need to name you. I haven't named you yet. I'm going to let my niece name you, though, so... Don't worry, it'll probably be a better name than Whale. Watch, she's going to name her Whale. Alright, so... They show up the ladybug thing again, which is still awesome. That's continuity, by the way. Speaking of which, continuity counter. But then we have... Excuse me, Miss Powerful. Wouldn't that be weird to have the last name of Powerful? I love the different style of the Saddle Arabian Unicorn, and I say it that way because I had trouble figuring out his name until I realized that it's never said in the entire episode. His name is Hufar. I looked it up, but, you know. Anyways, so Trixie loves her wagon. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Sentimental value is a thing. I'm not really like that. I have sentimental values for things that have sentimental value, if that makes any sense. But, like, I don't care how good this, how many days of awesome I've had in this chair. I need a good chair. So I don't really get the sentimental value thing for practical things, like, say, my house, for example. So it's weird to go through this, but they do establish this very quickly. They also establish something else very quickly, too, that Trixie has been getting better at her magic. You notice there's a couple of things she does which are actually hallmarks of Starlight's technique. The biggest and most obvious one is when she picks herself up with her magic and hovers herself down off of the wagon while she's establishing it. So that's cool. We still have some awesome transitions overall. And she's discussing with Starlight the fact that there's nothing that could possibly be better than a road trip with friends. How many of you have been on a road trip with friends? Because I have. Not many, admittedly, but that is something I have done. Oh yeah, the facial animations in this episode are, as usual, fantastic. We don't even have the donation thing up because I wasn't expecting any, so let me give you a second, Sean. And I will jot that down for whatever you're putting it towards. Thank you, Sean, very much, as always. No, I didn't, Ventures. Hang on. There it is. I don't even see it. Thank you very much, as always, Ventures. I would have seen it tomorrow if I didn't see it today, because I always check those in the morning. And I'll jot that down for Aiden. I'm probably still pronouncing wrong, and I probably still don't care. Although I am actually pretty hyped for that game. So thank you, and thank you, Sean, very much. So, transitions, road trips, Metroid Block, Spectacular Spider-Man. Give me a moment to split that up. Lost my train of thought. Where the hell was I? Okay, so there's a side note as they're discussing the road trip. You remember how Starlight was super bothered about how nobody wanted to come to her for advice? It looks like she's a little bit busier now, because there's a line of people outside of it, including, what's her face, so I keep forgetting her name, the pony, the foreshadowing pony, so that's fun. So then they show off the wagon. I would probably go insane trying to sleep in that wagon. Now, that's a specific reason. It's because I have spent several time in my life being in very, very confined spaces because that's all I could afford. I've literally lived out of bedrooms before. I've literally lived in my car before. So, kind of used to that kind of thing. And by used to it, I mean I hate it. Even here, now that I have a whole room for my set, which is nice, having nice open spaces is actually better for me and makes me feel more comfortable. Yeah, so I'm kind of with Starlight. I don't think I could sleep in that thing at all. But that's okay, that's okay. Because having two people in that would be even worse. So our setup is fairly obvious. They're doing a road trip in a tiny wagon. That's all that needs to be said. This is going to be the two of them getting on each other's last nerves. We'll talk about it in just a mention. Yeah, exactly, Russ. I would love that. That being said, you notice how she's got all of these inns marked out on the place on the route. Do you think she got Twilight to do that? Or maybe, you know, she got Pinky, because Pinky would probably know that kind of thing too. And just random thoughts as I was watching. And then we have the song, We're Friendship Bound. So first of all, I love the idea of Starlight holding up half the wagon just by herself with her magic. And I love how as they're dancing through the tune, this is wonderfully choreographed. As they're dancing through the tune, they're actually dancing around the obstacles like the cliff and the fire pits of the swamp. And this is, I think, the second time that we have a moment where we have canonical singing, because the post ponies later mention it. I need to decide where I'm going to put this song on my list, because it's not the worst song I've ever heard, but it's certainly not in the top, whatever, up to 6 at this point. So I'll have to think about it. Maybe here? Maybe here? No, maybe here. Maybe here. Hang on. We'll put it right here, right above Derby's Racers. That's where we'll put it. There we go. So, they go off, they sing, everything's cool. We start to see the cracks. I do like how the episode makes it a point that both people get on each other's nerves. That's good, that's nuanced. Because if it was just one person being terrible, then that would suck, right? You know, that would be awful. I'm kind of building up to a point here, but let's talk about... They have the Glopez Festival. That's nice. I love the expressions. That's nice. Let's talk about HP. One of the things that this show has shown several times that very, very, very few fictions get right is the concept of mental and emotional health. HP, specifically. And I'm saying HP because that means something different than just having good mental health. When we're in a good mood because things are doing well, because things are cool, then we're more willing to tolerate stuff, right? Something bad is less bothersome when we have so much good to counteract it. This is just basic psychology, like ground floor level psychology. I think of it from a video game perspective because it fits almost perfectly. Just think of your HP bar as this is how much good mood you have. If someone nicks you with that and you lose 1 HP, but you've got 50, who cares? If you've got 3 HP and someone nicks you for 1 HP, that's a much bigger hit because the percentage is larger, because it seems bigger, because we're less willing to deal with it. Now, this is why I say that the premise is very obvious. It's a road trip. Road trips are not quite the full acid test. So for those who never heard me talk about this, the acid test is living with someone, long term. It's the acid test because when you are in nonstop, constant interaction with something, then you are dealing with it differently. You're dealing with it all the time. You may be good friends with someone, or like someone, or hang out with someone, or either in terms of friendship, family, or loved one. But when you're with them all the time, it's just different. You have to deal with that all the time. And there's all those little niggling things that they probably don't even realize they're doing. I have tons of little verbal tics and physical tics that I have just kind of gotten used to that would probably bug the crap out of someone who lived with me on a regular basis, right? And that's true for everyone. I'm not just calling myself out on that. We all have our little things when we're young and when we're old. Especially when we're old, though, because we're all patterned by that point. So, you live with someone first for a while before you dedicate to something long-term, because that's the acid test. That's why it's called that. Now, the reason this is relevant is because a road trip is a pretty good, brief, but still vertical slice of an acid test. Because you have to deal with that person in close proximity under unpleasant conditions long term, because that's what a road trip is. You're not going comfortable. If you were going comfortable, then you probably wouldn't be doing the road trip at all. You'd be vacationing, I think is actually the term at that point, right? No. You aren't well off. So you're dealing with what you can get, which you'll notice is exactly what happens in this episode. They don't actually have anything other than this one tiny wagon and a relatively small budget in order to be able to make things happen. And oh, and also there's a festival, so they don't even get an inn at all. And as Ross points out, even if they got in the hotel room, the snoring would still be an issue, and they would still have budget issues, and they would still have the issue with her reciting her shows in her sleep. None of the issues would go away, right? They would be made better because your HP's higher, because the mental health and the emotional health is higher. But all these things stack on top of each. Someone, I think Trathan mentioned it as a dot, and that's a perfect analogy. If you're with someone long term, it's a dot, and it just ticks away at you over and over. Now, this is kind of, well, I'll talk about more of that. Let me build up to that. There's actually another point this episode makes, which makes it awesome. And it's a shame because the first act is great, and the second act pisses me off, and then the third act is great again. But we'll build back around to that in a second. Anyways, one of the other interesting things, so I'm talking about how much your health affects your personal relationships. How much do you think your job is affected? One of the reasons I am so massively anti-crunch culture, which isn't just about crunching, but about general employee abuse, because let's just call it what it is because it's all of this health damage. It's all of this mental and emotional health damage, which is making everything worse, which also causes some very serious issues. Not just in their personal life, but in their work. Your work suffers when you're more tired, when you're less focused, when you're more irritable. That's just fact. Because everything we do suffers when we're like that. Now, they show this. They show this with regards to the show, which is not great. And they do a pretty bad job of it, so that sucks. And we show many, many instances of people getting electric nerves, and they go back and forth. Everything's kind of just irritation, until finally they get to the point where Trixie says, I'm just going to go out and sleep in the stars, which actually, I admit, I was thinking, why don't you do that like 5 minutes ago? But that's just me. I mean, you are ponies after all. I get it, you want a comfortable bed, but you're still a pony. Then again, I just played Majora's Mask, where a Goron is upset about not getting an inn, so he instead goes outside and sleeps in the stars, and it's quite comfortable, so that's probably fresh in my mind. Also, I'm glad that your headspace is doing better, Low Kitty. Sorry, I didn't want to comment on that in the middle of the rant there. So, I mean, we always come up with memes for every particular show I cover, right? So the meme for MLP has very much been, and this is when the episode loses me. So this is when the episode loses me. Here's the problem. Everything. Okay, now that we've summarized that, Starlight just gives away the wagon. Okay, so that's already stupid on several levels. Now let's actually look at this for a moment, because the decision in and of itself is very logical and rooted in the ideas of not just selfishness, but trying to make things better for her friend. This was not an endeavor. God, I can't talk. This was not an endeavor done simply because of selfishness or greed or self-interest or whatever. She was thinking about Trixie in addendum. This was a practical solution to the issues they had. We have a large space, we can fit all your stuff, and we could be comfortable, and we could have a nice night's sleep, and everything's cool, right? It was a practical, logical, fundamental, friendly solution that she should have never done. If you do something like this for a friend or a family or a loved one, and don't consult them at all, don't even mention it at all to them, then you're wrong. To be completely blunt, yeah, there's asterisks there, there's nuances there, but at the very least, you should have gone to Trixie and said, hey, I have an idea. Let's go ahead and trade this and do this. And she could have tried to talk Trixie into it. She could have given the practical solutions. And if Trixie's okay with it, then yeah, sure, done. And if Trixie shoots it down, then she shoots it down and done. Right? This feels so stupid. It feels like I'm explaining. So water is wet, okay? Now, when you have water and you like dip your finger into it like this, there's some water on your finger, okay? That's what I feel like I'm describing here. This is so duh. Because this is such a dumb plot point, and it serves no purpose in the episode. It actually detracts from the episode substantially. Because this is just Starlight being stupid for no good reason. But hang on, it gets worse. Because we got one more thing here. The what, Darth Medora? We got one more thing here. So, Starlight is not exactly the kind of person to be unaware of other ponies' feelings. Now, she's not exactly the most sensitive pony in the universe, but she has a consistent pattern of noticing when things are up with others. In fact, Starlight is usually the one who points out that something's going on with someone else before anyone else does. She and Spike also kind of follow that particular mindset, right? How's that a meme? Okay, whatever. I'm not going to argue it. Got it. So the fact that there's a scene which is very specifically cast where Trixie is obviously, noticeably, visibly crying, upset, and sad, and Starlight gives no reaction. None. This is easy to fix, too, because all you'd have to do is change the presentation of this scene. Have Starlight be like, it was just a wagon. Like, she's confused. Like, wait, this is clearly hurting my friend, but I don't understand why. It was just a wagon. I've replaced it with a big... Don't worry, I got all your stuff. All your stuff is still here. I didn't get rid of anything. You know, trying to understand what's up with Trixie. Instead, it's a complete no-sell. She gives zero reaction to any of it. And then Trixie, who is actually fully in character, says something hurtful. Now, that makes perfect sense, actually. Because when you are already low on HP, remember, mundane things can lower your HP as well. Being tired, being hungry, being itchy, all those little mundane things also lower your tolerance. So she's got all that, plus the fact that she's already upset at Starlight, plus the fact that she lost her thing. She's not thinking straight. So she says something hurtful as basically just something that she doesn't really mean. Because she doesn't really mean that. That makes sense. That's logical. Starlight's reaction makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So we have one character, that's true, Imperial Star Destroyer. We've got one character which is terribly written, and one character which is perfectly well written in the same scene, which is always frustrating to me, let me tell you. Hang on, it gets worse, because then Starlight goes on back to Ponyville with the wagon. Starlight, I hate to explain economic principles to you, but that's not your wagon. I know you were the person who proceeded in the transaction, but you traded Trixie's wagon for that wagon. That is Trixie's wagon now. And I know Trixie says to just take it, but that's still stupid. There is absolutely no reason for Starlight to take that wagon. She has no need, want, or use of it. She should have, at very least, just been left it there in High Dungeon, and then, sure, fine. The problem here is the reason this happens is because plot. And at this point, you could see the structure of the episode. We need to have a moment where Starlight brings the wagon back to Trixie so she can trade it to the, God, I wrote down his name here, Bob, to Hufar, so they can get the thing back. Sure, but that is, again, because plot. It is not logical, it does not make sense, and it actually is to the detraction of the episode. So that sucks. Then the episode gets me back a little bit. Like I said, the third act kind of pulls it up a little bit. Because the two male ponies bring up the other side of the equation. Now, fiction gets the acid test wrong a lot. So we'll say maybe 20% of fiction understands the concept of the acid test. But of that 20%, only maybe about 2 or 3% actually understand the other side of that equation. Because someone ignorant might look at the acid test, might look at living in such a circumstance and say, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to live with someone who snores like that? Why would you want to live with someone who recites in their thing? Why would you want to live under such circumstances that are so irritating or frustrating? Now, you could say because it's worth it, but no. I mean, yes, but it's more nuanced than that. 2 HP bars can withstand more than 1 can. to continue the analogy. If you and whoever it is you're with have a hard time or a difficulty or a problem, it effectively hits both of you, but it hits you less because you're spreading that damage out a little bit, if that makes any sense. And you're bolstering each other too. Your health, your HP bar, is actually magnifying and factoring the other one. And so they actually show this. They show this with the ponies, and they show this with the male ponies, and they show this with Starlight having issues with areas that she had no issues with before, because she was dealing with those issues when she had someone to support her. I know this sounds really basic, but again, very little fiction ever picks up on this very important fact. This is why people live together despite the problems. There are other reasons, obviously, practical, financial reasons, but there are many reasons why you would still want to live with someone despite the irritations. Because, yeah, sure, it's frustrating, and oh my god, they snore, and there's this thing where they kind of move around in the night, which is really irritating. But when something actually bad happens, you've got that extra support there to help you get through it. And it helps to make the day-to-day more endurable. Your 5 to 9 job, for example, might be something that, well, you know, this is a suck day at work, but at least I could come home to my ex. You know, whether it's X, that actually sounds like a bad way to put that, because you think I mean EX, but I mean blank X, right? Fill in the blank. I could come home to my family. I could come home to my friend. I could come home to my roommate, etc. And so I like how they bother to show that and actually demonstrate that with the two of them. Then they do the friendship chant, which had me laughing so hard I had to pause the episode for a second, so I'll give you that one. And he even mentioned something which I like. Only two friends would be willing to act so ridiculous around each other. How many of you have heard of a game called Just Dance? Now, if you tried to donate for me to play Just Dance on camera, I would say no. But I have played Just Dance with my niece and my sister last week, actually. I felt completely ridiculous, and in fact, I was pushing against the idea consistently because I was sufficiently embarrassed to be like, no, I don't want to make a fool of myself. But, well, this is what friends are willing to do with real friends. They are willing to be ridiculous around each other. And that's actually a real thing, too. So credit where credit is due. And then the episode ends on a wah-wah, so we have to give the wah-wah counter a thing. Yeah, how many people do you feel comfortable being a ridiculous idiot about? Something that would legitimately embarrass the hell out of you. Because for me, that list is pretty small. Yeah, and I actually agree with Ross for once. Trixie is well-written the entire episode. Starlight dips in and out of being well-written. She is well-written for the most part, and then she stops being well-written, and then she goes back to being well-written again. It's really irritating. So, how the hell do we rate this one? I would probably say this is, I'd say the most irritating moment I've had for Starlight in the entire show so far. This is what I like to call character assassination. This is 100% her being out of character. I don't buy it for a second. And the problem is, usually this kind of character assassination is done for the sake of artificial drama, which is exactly what it's done for in this episode. It is just there to emphasize and escalate the drama, which is completely unnecessary. There are dozens of ways you could have written around this stupidity to make this better. Like I said, I already gave one suggestion. You could have her giving away the thing, and then noticing what problems this is causing her friend and being confused by it and hurt and like, wait, why does this do it? And then Trixie, when she is injured, says something she doesn't mean, and then Starlight takes that personally, and the two, she runs off, oh my gosh, hurt, and then she runs back to help her out, yada yada. It would be relatively easy to fix this to the point where Starlight isn't literally acting out of character. Trixie was fine, because she was in an emotionally compromised position and acted like it. I need to look something up. What's the episode? Bottled Up. Hang on. Now, we gave All Bottled Up a green, because it was a good episode with absolutely frustrating out-of-character irritation in it. So based on that, I hate to case law this, but based on that, I'm willing to give this one a green. What are we thinking? In all honesty, if it wasn't for Starlight being so aggravatingly out of character, I would rate this one much higher. I'm willing to go up to yellow, because in Ball Bottled Up, Trixie was constantly out of character, whereas in this episode, Starlight was only out of character for one scene. So, I'm willing to push up from green. Absolutely. I don't think I could do red on this one. Which is a shame, because Josh Haber has an extremely good track record. In fact, he has only 2 episodes prior to now that are not red or purple. By the way, what was that about being a dick, Darth Medora? Who was being a dick to you? Listen, that cat understands that you need breakfast, okay? They'll be cool. They definitely won't be upset when you fling them out of your lap. Ironically, I have a headache right now, too. Something I talked about during Ghost Trick. Which was just last night. Interesting. Oh, whatever. Sorry, I'm really debating between yellow and orange right now. That is the choice right now. I'm staring at those 2 colors. No plans to do so, Petox, no. I guess we could. If that one... See, that's what I was debating, Trathan. I think if we just smoothed over that one scene, it would be red. I mean, obviously one thing can completely spoil the punch bowl. But I think we will go ahead and move up to orange. Let's go ahead and call it an orange episode. It is a good episode, except when it's absolutely aggravating. So. Go ahead and put it there. And the song sucked! Anyways.